everyone, welcome to 1001 Nights of Lessons. I'm your host Dildar, and you're listening to or watching the last episode of 1001 Nights of Lessons. But this is not the end. Don't get me wrong. It's only the beginning because in 2026, we are rebranding, coming back with a fresh new name, fresh new look, and a fresh new DNA of what the podcast is about. Shifting focus slightly into something that I have discovered to be more true to myself and the community, which I will get into the new vision I have for the podcast in the second half of today's episode. But most importantly, since it's the last episode of 2025, we're going to do a reflective look back on the podcast, this 1 year of journey together. And I will share everything I learned about personal growth and life through starting a podcast for a whole year this year. When I started the podcast, I told myself, this is the one thing that I will do consistently and not give up halfway. I told myself I'm going to give myself at least 3 years to do my best to see where I can take this podcast to. First year is over. I've already have a small community from Spotify, YouTube who tune in to listen to the podcast. It is nowhere as Call Her Daddy or any of those mainstream zeitgeist podcasts yet. No, the slow progression of growth does not faze me whatsoever. I just have immense gratitude of what I have built already and what I have learned already. That is my overall feeling after this 1 year, I would say. To my surprise, there are some really positive statistics related to 1001 Nights of Lessons in Spotify Rap. Because it is the first year for the podcast, I did not dream to be on any of your top podcast list. 1001 Nights of Lessons is on 74 people's top 5 podcasts that they listened to this year. What? Can you imagine if 74 people are lining up in front of me and they're listening to me for this whole year? That is so amazing. That's a community, okay? That's a start. That's something. And the other two statistics that I'm really proud of is that we are top 20% of video podcasts on Spotify. Do you know how many podcasts are out there? If you show up consistently, you're going to get your spot. And I'm at top 20% of video podcasts, which is probably among a million podcasts or even more, I don't know. And last statistic, we are one of the most shared shows on Spotify. We have more share than 97% of the other podcasts on Spotify. Thank you guys for sharing and telling your friends and family about the podcast. I'm just so grateful. And hopefully we can do that more in 2026. Hopefully we can be on more and more people's top podcast list in next year's wrap. Let's look back on this year on the topics we have covered. In this 38 nights, we've covered stories of my stupid dating mistakes from my early 20s and to wild travel stories from my early 20s and progress into my relationship with dating in current days, giving up dating, attempting to trying to date again, real time heal from a long-term relationship breakup on camera with you guys. I would say the first quarter of this year, that was where my mental focus was at. I'm so glad to say, sitting here now, I'm completely over it. Right now, I am decentering dating, healed so beyond words from my breakup to a point that I cannot imagine my life with the person that I was so hung up on. And I'm so grateful and happy of my current life and how it is right now. I am content. I have a meaningful life that I'm building. I'm busy about. I have dreams, I have ambitions, I have things to do. No time for overthinking on dating at all. That is not my priorities, and I am not desperate to date anybody. I'm happy with being with myself, and I know that this comes with a risk of possibly be alone forever, and I'm okay with that. Definitely quitting dating apps for good. Once again, we are back at that conclusion. And disclaimer, with that, I'm not saying that dating is a bad thing in a negative way. It is just not my focus right now. And I feel like everybody has different phases. As long as you know what are your priorities in life, you would have no regret in committing 1,000% for those things. A lot of our solo episode also focused on productivity, creating rituals. And then towards the end, I started to do travel debriefs, real time, take you on my trips that I've taken this year, which is Glen Canyon trip as well as the Hawaii trip. I really milked my Hawaii trip this year. I had a YouTube vlog out, a bunch of short forms, as well as a 2 podcast episode on Hawaii. I mean, Hawaii deserves it. But don't worry, that chapter has ended for now this year until next time I go to other islands. But travel will continue in 2026 to new places, and I can't wait to take you on that adventure this year. Together, we have expanded our minds through books. I'm going to be honest, if it's not the book club with the podcast, I would probably not even finish one book this year, just judging by the previous year's track record of this constant distraction of digital media in the world, the noise from the world. It is hard to hold on to a book and finish it. So I thank you for being my accountability buddy. Out of all the books we read this year, the book that has reshaped my mindset, my philosophy towards life the most is The Courage to be Disliked. The book Attached really came in clutch, right in the thick of me healing from my breakup, and it puts everything into perspective for me. Women Who Run with Wolf is another one that heighten my intuition as a woman. I think it's a book that I will just keep forever. Other than that, Genghis Khan, The Making of the Modern World, that history book is also life-changing for me in a sense that it filled in the blank of a piece of the past that's important to me. I feel so wise after that. I know so much about Genghis Khan. Actually, the whole video, looking back now, I've been saying Chinggis Khan because that's how I grew up saying it with my accent from my region. And people on social media have corrected me that it is Genghis Khan. So I apologize here. So those are the books that really stood out to me this year from all the books we read. Next year in 2026, we're going to continue reading books. However, we're not going to do one book per review. I have a bigger appetite for knowledge and books. I'm going to read as much as possible next year, and every month or every other month, I'm going to sit down here and share with you 3 or 4 books I read in the past 2 months. And that is the format that we will go forward with in 2026. The books I'm reading currently. So you are informed of my reading journey, and hopefully you can pick up those books as well if you're interested after that. And last year, we have multiple guests on a monthly basis. I have a lot of my friends appear on the podcast. The Jenny episode where she shared her modeling journey, that was so inspiring. Gazira, my childhood friend, where we unpacked precious childhood memory. Yeah, on that note, I have my dad on. One of the best thing I did, I think that episode with my dad I will cherish forever. We even did it in our own mother language. I also have my trainer on to talk about just lifestyle fitness. I am trying to get my nutritionist on the podcast next year, so that's what you can expect. I'm usually a very talkative, outgoing person, and I have to consciously teach myself to actively listen and not ADHD barge in and interrupt the heck out of people. And so having guests on really trained me to be a better listener, help me pick up the stories that matters and dive deeper into that. I'm by no way good at it, completely mastered it at all. This is just the beginning. But I'm excited to hone down my interview skill in the new year. So with that being said, in 2026, there's going to be a lot more consistent guest episode. I've already have 3 exciting guests booked and ready to go. Sorry to cut you off in the middle of the episode, but I'd like to share the sponsor of today's episode. It is me. I'm launching an 8 weeks long beginner Uyghur language course that focuses heavily on conversational skill set, foundational vocabulary. And if you're interested, you can sign up for the waitlist right now on 1001nightsoflessons.com. Now it's time to get into the lessons part. What podcasting has taught me in 2025, taught me about personal growth and life beyond podcasting. First and foremost, the most important lesson is the power of consistency. This year, from actually from November of 2024 up until May, we have consistently produced weekly episodes. And then maybe you have noticed I've taken one break in May for 2 weeks. And ever since that 2 weeks break, I struggled so much to balance everything and be weekly podcast episode again. Once the flow of the consistency is interrupted, it is really hard for you to get back on that momentum. The more consistent you're at something, the faster you accelerate, the smoother is that ship. And once you stop, you stumble and you struggle, it's hard to get back in the previous momentum you have created, but it's not possible. From this experiment, I noticed that when you are not consistent, you fell out of other people's schedule as well. And I'm sure those periods of time when I'm not consistent with posting the podcast, I fell out of your daily routine when you normally listen to podcasts. It definitely impacts the performance of the podcast in that sense, but it applies to so many other things you're doing, your workout, your business that you're trying to create. So in 2026, I want to continue consistently doing weekly podcasts for you to the best of my ability and hopefully do a little better than this year. Because if you want to be perfect, then that's too much pressure, right? Just do better than the you before. I want to share a little bit about how I did it when I succeeded in being consistent the first half of the year. What helped is me sticking to a schedule. First, block those time on your calendar. Second, show up no matter how you feel about it. Third, prioritize ruthlessly and say no to anything else that stands in your way for you to show up for this. Normally, Fridays, I would write script, bullet points, talking points for the podcast. But I did notice that when I write out every single idea and argument, the recording is very, very painful because I'm constantly looking at, oh, what did I miss and stuff like that. If I have a general bullet point guideline, that works best for me so I can freely talk real time. So Friday, I script. Saturday, I record. Having a dedicated day for a same type of activity is really helpful. Sundays, I edit. I go down to the coffee shop right downstairs and I focus and I edit 3-4 hours and grind that episode out. And sometimes I couldn't finish, so editing takes a lot of time. However, the more you do it, the faster you will be at it. Whether it's YouTube video or a movie or a podcast. I will use Tuesday, Wednesday to edit the social media clip, schedule the episode to be posted. Wednesday is the post day. That will not change in 2026, by the way. We're still gonna aim to post an episode every Wednesday. Thursday is social media posting, all the clips that we prepared for social media. And Friday, we continue. It's a loop. So when do I rest? I don't know. And maybe that is why I burned out last year. So something about this particular schedule needs to change. So I know that this year on Thursday, normally it's a lighter task day, right? Like sometimes the social media clips doesn't take that much time. I get it done on Wednesday, and Thursday is really my only day off. And when you say day off, I'm still working my 9-to-5 job. So I feel like really like my Aura Ring's stress result is lower. Everything is lower. I think in order to sustain it longer, I need to force myself to build in a little bit longer of a rest day, rearrange this schedule of production in the new year. Another thing that helps with consistency is once you have the downtime, batch episode ahead of time. Batch your work and plan it out ahead of time. Know what's coming in the future, month ahead of time, and plan for it. That is why this is the last episode of December. I'm taking the rest of December to prepare for the new year, for the rebrand. Okay, so that's everything on consistency. It's a big one, so we rambled a little bit. But the next thing I want to talk about a mental model. It is the ability to shut out all noise, believe in yourself, and move forward. Even the noise that's inside your own head that's judging you. So there's 2 layers to it, right? First, you need to shut out outside noise that is not helping you. How to do this? It's easy to say, right? We all understand that we should not care about other people's opinion. We should not be cringed at the thought of being perceived and just be fierce and be yourself. What helps is, first step, you figure out who you are. Once you're completely clear about what you want to do, why you're doing it, and who you are, then nothing else can faze you. As long as you're staying true to yourself, your why, and your integrity, you're good. Don't look back. Don't be cringed. Go forward. That's why I was able to try all sorts of different social media videos, talk about all sorts of things on this podcast, leading with that sense of why and integrity. And I feel good about it. The next topic I want to talk about is how my relationship with social media has evolved through doing the podcast for a year. And I would say my biggest lesson learned regarding how to do social media is how I positioned myself. In the beginning of the year, I think of myself as a content creator or a wannabe influencer who has a podcast, wants to start a business. And I realized, no, I'm thinking this whole thing wrong. And somewhere in the middle, I stopped to reassess and I realized what's important to me is my business, and the podcast is create a body of work. And social media is a tool to get in front of people. It's a marketing tool, and I need to use it as such. So I completely reverse engineered my mindset. So now I'm operating as a business owner, podcaster who uses social media to do marketing, versus when you are positioning yourself previously, all you would care about is grinding out daily videos, doing different trends and getting likes, getting followers. Yes, those things are great, but if you don't know why you're doing those things for, you are wasting your time. I think it's the book Essentialism that we read together made me pause and think about this actually. And it is after reading Essentialism that my mindset has changed, to tie it back to our book club. Because we all have such limited time, spending my time and your time so wisely on things that are essential to you. I'm focusing less on quantity, but on quality. I am posting less on social media these days, maybe a couple of videos a week, and it's still a lot. Actually, it still takes a lot of time. But the 2 or 3 videos I put out that week, I can say are all my original idea, a minute-long video talking about something meaningful about my culture and language. That's more my personal brand on TikTok and Instagram nowadays. Just to switch internally has saved me so much time. I no longer have this immense pressure of posting daily, and I'm more dialed in to my creative juju. The more you are creatively expressing yourself authentically, just completely unleashing with no self-judgment, the better you're at it. It's another muscle in your brain. With that being said, ever so often, I would have a bad idea or I cave into a fun trend that I think is relevant to myself. Yes, I'm gonna play, because at the end of the day, I still love social media. This is the key thing that I kept repeating throughout the video, is that if you want to dive into a passion project and make it your business, you have to love it, because success doesn't come overnight and Rome is not built in one day. A way to remind yourself your passion and love for something is to be grateful. Gratitude will unlock love and passion and propel you forward. So just like that, I spent the whole year trying to throw things at the wall to see what stick with social media, right? Finally, gradually, I noticed some things have stuck, and have stuck in a beautiful way, in a meaningful way to me and the people who receives it. 2026 is all about honing in, sprinting towards those things that have stuck. And I'm glad that I have the sense of clarity on my social media strategy of what those things are. Maybe you know this, or maybe you don't if you don't follow my social media. I have always posted about my culture and my language, Uyghur culture and Uyghur language, on TikTok and Instagram. The more that I teach people about my culture, the more purposeful I feel. And I feel like I'm doing something here that actually is meaningful to even myself, to reconnect my own self to my own cultural heritage and identity living in the US, right? In this process, I'm also helping so many people like myself. And I've seen that people from other countries draw parallel and similarities between culture, bridge those differences. And it's just such a beautiful thing. We are all so different, but we are all so similar at the same time. And now I'm working on an Uyghur language beginner course for people who want to learn it. Preparing this course itself is giving me so much purpose, and I feel like everything just clicked in a synergetic level. I've spent my entire life feeling lost about who I want to be. How can I live a purposeful life? I think people wonder this question their whole life, right? For the first time, turning almost 30, I'm 29, I found a sense of groundedness in my purpose. Maybe this purpose will evolve and change too with years, but that is not my concern. I am going to just live in the moment, focus on a few things for 3 to 5 years and see it through. The next thing I learned is the power of networking. And this didn't happen until past couple of months when I finally had the courage and audacity to do so. Social media is the new LinkedIn. Yeah, and if you're still using social media to send silly reels to your friends, DM people to go on dates, I'm talking to guys listening to this, you're not using it to its full potential. I started to think about what kinds of interesting people I can bring on my podcast. And I use social media to scout guests. I made new friends based in Seattle from Instagram on a personal level. I also booked guests for the new year. I had this dream guest list in my head, and I just always think like I'm not there yet to get these guests on the podcast. But I'm gonna stop that. Honestly, it's never the right time. Quoting like Lady Gaga or something, 99 people didn't have to believe in you in the room. It just takes that one person to believe in you. And you never know, the person you reach out to could be that one person. So I started to reach out to some higher caliber dream guests to collaborate and get on the podcast for you. Because I've done sales before, the closing ratio is usually 100 to 1. You need to ask 100 people in that level, reach for the moon, and maybe one of them will say yes. So that is a philosophy I'm taking with me to 2026. I'm expecting failure. I'm expecting rejections. But guess what? If you never reached out, your rate of failure is 100%. Your rate of nothing is going to happen is 100%. I have reached out. So now I'm sitting duck, okay? But I'm sitting here with 1% chance of getting them booked. This applies to the podcast, but it also applies to every single freaking thing. And I'm definitely dialing into the reaching for the moon energy for the new year. And since we're talking about these guests, I also want to share another vision I have. I am going to shift and focus on diverse guests and unique voices to platform on the podcast with you. They are Uyghur people just like myself doing different cool things, and Central Asian people from all over the world. This basket of diversity is so large. Just cool, interesting, diverse people and their stories are going to be platformed on the podcast. Primarily, that's my focus. I think when people see that people like themselves are thriving and doing amazing things and attempting to do great things out in the world, owning their identity, they will feel so empowered, encouraged to do the same for themselves and their dreams. And that is why representation matters. That is why diversity of all kinds matter. And I want that woven into the DNA of my podcast in 2026. The last thing podcasting has taught me is public speaking and communication in general. Now, this is a vulnerable expose of myself. In the beginning of recording the podcast, I am pausing and repeating myself 500 million times and spending hours in editing to mash those clips together. If you look back on some of the episodes, my editing cuts are crazy. It's glitching like, and I try to make it not obvious for you, so you might not even notice. But I know I've definitely become more articulate, increased my vocabulary tiny bit with all the books we read together too. I learned how to pause and think before you speak. You would think I should know that. I would just talk and I forgot what I was talking about or why I'm even talking. And just on the production side of thing a little bit, to get a little technical and nitty gritty, I don't know if you're interested in the behind the scene, but I'm going to share it anyway, is when you are your own producer and editor of the podcast, you are so critical and aware of all of your speech behaviors. So I've noticed my common filler words and common repetition. Next time I show up, I consciously avoid saying those things. At least I had an opportunity to present myself of those mistakes. So many people never really re-examine their speech pattern, public speaking pattern, communication in that way. If I don't edit my own podcast, I would have never known how many times I say and or certain words, right? And another progression is my editing skill. In the beginning, I feel like I was much harsh, meaner of an editor. I would take out every single breath, every single awkward laugh, because when you play back your own laugh, it's unbearable. I hate my laugh. And I learned to be less critical of myself in that way, to leave in more natural pauses, to let it feel like an actual human conversation, especially in interviews, to keep majority of the interview uninterrupted, to show you that kind of real life progression of a conversation. And I think that's why a lot of the interview podcasts are successful, is because they're really good at doing that, of a flow of a real conversation, and that brings the audience in. By being a better interviewer real life will also help that, and then more gracious of an editor post-editing will elevate the podcast next year. And that's what I learned. And that's about all the lessons I learned. I would like to say, I often hear a narrative on social media. Nowadays, everybody has a podcast, diminishing people starting a podcast. My first reaction was, oops, I have a podcast. But it doesn't matter. It's one of those noise that we need to shut out, because I'm so tuned in of what I'm gaining from the podcast. This whole list of reasons I shared with you is why I'm doing this. So I don't care if there is 1 million podcasts or 1 billion podcasts. There's probably 1 billion podcasts, honestly. I don't care. And if you're listening, I just hope we can be more conscious of ourselves to not add to that scarcity mindset, to judge others who are out there doing things. There's a gajillion trillion movies out there, and we still need new thought-provoking movies. There's a trillion podcasts out there, and we still lack podcasts with my fabric. We still need people like me to show up more. And so more people like me can show up. Does that make sense? Now I'm just turning into a motivational guru speaker. So I just want this whole lessons I learned on podcasting to end on that message. Now, as I promised, I said I'm going to reveal what the rebrand will be. Did I say that? I feel like I said that. So here it is. As a reward for you to listen and watch to this point of the podcast towards the end, the new name for our podcast in 2026 will be Diva Wears Atlas. Let me explain. It doesn't really rhyme, right? It doesn't really roll off your tongue. When I thought of this name, I had the same level of excitement, light bulb moment as when I thought of 1001 Nights of Lessons. And that's how I know it's a good name. As we consistently show up, I have confidence that it will stick eventually. Diva, because the D in Dildar stands for diva. Despite the traditional negative connotation associated with the word diva, it describes a star that's difficult and demanding, right? In the feminism realm, the word diva is reclaimed to be a positive and empowering thing. And you know that already. I know some Gen Z are listening. They're like, duh, over-explaining master millennial. I'm on the cups of millennial or Gen Z, but that doesn't matter. So back to diva. For me, diva means a woman who knows what she wants. A woman who is not afraid to get what she wants, is confident and knows who she is, fierce, talented, unyielding. And it's certainly a type of aura I would like to exude, and I want every single one of my listeners to exude. You are my divas. Listeners, in 2026, you guys are divas. I'll say, hi, divas. Oh my God, this makes so much sense. And if you're a male listening to this, like, first of all, kudos to you. You are the creme de la creme to be listening to this as a man, because you are a feminist, first and foremost. And you are a diva in my heart, okay? The real man who doesn't have fragile masculinity will not be offended to be called as a diva. And the next word, atlas, is so endearing to my heart. Maybe you don't know this, but I'm an Uyghur girl, I've said it multiple times, and Atlas in Uyghur culture is significant. It's the dress that the girls wear traditionally, and even now in their home as display. And every Uyghur girl has a traditional dress stored in their closet for special occasions and holidays, including myself. Yes, Atlas is a traditional fabric. It's actually included in the UNESCO cultural heritage because it is such a rare craft. It is a silk fabric. The way to make it is so precious. It's a mix of different colors and patterns. It's usually in red, green, yellow, like all sorts of colors. At the same time, in a global sense, Atlas also means a map of the world. And I think it gives the podcast a global connotation because we're global divas. A person who has a global mindset is inherently a wiser, cooler person. The whole phrasing of Diva wears Atlas is inspired by Devil wears Prada. And that's just the fashionable, chic, girly side of me coming out here. Devil Wears Prada is one of my favorite movies of all time. With that being said, this is the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Not just today's episode, but for the whole year in 2025. Like I said, it is just the beginning. Don't forget to follow the podcast wherever you listen on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And I'll see you next year. Bye-bye.